All right. Well, we are here. We are actually live streaming. This is our first ever episode live. I know. And no shortage of episode one live, episode nine otherwise. And welcome, church. Why do we keep doing this? Why? Why do, okay. So if we're going to start with that, I will say that I remember going to see that in the theater and enjoying it because it was, what was it, 99, right? So it had been 16 years. Oh, we can't hear Brian, it says. Okay, hold on a second. No, I can hear you. Let's see, Brian, Zoom. People can, okay. Folks, we'll figure this out. My microphone. Just a second, Brian. Nope, it's my bad. Okay, let's go to. Hang with us, folks. Go ahead and say something now. Nope.
Say something now.
Yep, I think we're on.
Hello?
Yep, I think we're good. Yeah,
there we
I forgot
go.
to check. So anyway, we're live. So that's the way this thing works. Thank you, Jesse.
And I derailed you really instantly, which was great.
Well, so we were talking about Star Wars Episode 1. Was it good, or was it the fact that 16 years later we couldn't believe we were getting another episode of Star Wars?
It wasn't the masterpiece of like episode 4, 5, or 6. Okay, sure.
Right.
But I don't think it's as bad as people think.
Well, and
that's a bit.
So like Return of the Jedi, I never understood the backlash of that because I was so excited in 1983 that it was there. And so when people were angry about Ewoks, I'm like, I don't care. I'm just glad they're showing the movie. You know, I don't know. People get worked up over ridiculous things, I think.
Yep.
So, again, this is our first episode broadcasting live, not pre-recorded. And obviously we're going to have some bumps. But it looks like we've got 2 people watching on YouTube right now and 1 person on Facebook. My guess is that Jesse is 2 of the 3 people. But I hope other folks will join us shortly. And, well, what have you done since you escaped from the dark?
From the darkness?
Yeah.
Yeah. This whole episode today, Joe, is just for people who are listening, is all going to be about, reflecting on the power outage that happened here just over 2 weeks ago, almost week and a half ago, something like that, right?
Yeah. It was Friday.
It started, yeah. And for those of you who don't know, almost everybody who's going to listen to us knows that starting on a Friday night, a big ice storm came through, snowstorm, and most of the Portland area got hit, and almost a huge amount of us got power out. And I was out for 6 days. I think you were out for 9, Joe?
We were in our 10th day. It just depends on how you count. So yes, nine full days, and then we were about halfway through our 10th day when it came back. Yeah,
Wow,
plenty.
And some people, you didn't lose water, right?
No, that was one of our really huge blessing for us is that we have a natural gas hot water heater, so we had hot water, and I think Vanessa said that if it weren't for that, she would have gone crazy.
But some people didn't even have water at all. I mean, not even running water because they were on a well, so they couldn't get water. In fact, there's a large number of people, more than a couple of people at our church who didn't have any. Dixie, who's probably watching, didn't have water, for example.
Wow.
I know. No power, no water. And so, yeah, I mean, it's been a little bit just getting back to normal. And we wanted to talk about, reflections, lessons learned during that time. And so if you want to talk about that in the comments, right, let us know. What did you learn during this time, things you went, oh, wow, that's true. And about me or about life or about God or whatever it is, type that into the comments and we'll talk about that. But I know, Joe, you had some. And as you go along, I have some thoughts too. So
Sure. Well, we cheated a little bit and chatted about a couple of things before
yeah,
we started. Tried not to get into too much. And you'll forgive me, my voice is a little tired because I've been in meetings most of the day.
trying to catch up.
Trying to catch up. Yep, trying to catch up. Well, my when the transformer blew outside our window at 3 a.m. Saturday morning or Friday night, depending on how you look at it, my thought was, oh, well, this is fun. There's a novelty aspect to losing power where you're like, oh, this is kind of interesting. What's it going to be like before they, until they turn it back on? And it's
The
usually,
disaster fascination. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's like, okay, it'll take them a few hours, before it gets back on, but that's fine. And we woke up and, oh, still no power. I wonder what that, I wonder what that looks like. And so when I first looked at, oh, it's going to be Monday at 3 a.m., a day and a half without power, I'm like, ooh, that's not going to be much fun, but we'll be fine. I'm sure it'll be sooner. So there was just kind of initially not even considering the magnitude, because in my experience, an outage, I grew up with a dad who worked for an electric utility. And so, I kind of had a perspective on what to expect, and it was not, 5 to 10 days without power.
And we had the same thing. We came out. It was like, oh, it's Saturday morning. Like, wow, we don't have any power. This is kind of interesting, and we're just having fun with it. And then we hear, oh my gosh, it's going to be Tuesday,
Right.
and we, oh, Tuesday. That's going to be so long. Like, oh
Right.
man, how can we live without power till Tuesday? Oh, go ahead.
No, I agree. That was when they kept moving it, went from Monday morning to Tuesday afternoon. I'm like, ooh, well, it'll be before then. They're providing us with the, worst case scenario
Right.
on that stuff. Like, okay, well, we'll be fine. And my main concerns were really around work. I work from home. I run my own business, and I'm a one-person business. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's going to be rough. How are we going to acclimate to that? But all that stuff is very, it's more practical than anything else. And it wasn't until they changed the ETA to, we don't know, that I really started to look at things a little differently. And I think my signal is dropping a bit, so hopefully that comes back. You hear? Oh,
I can hear you.
okay. It says my internet connection is unstable, which is probably appropriate. Oh, I'm back. Anyway, but I started, you would watch how people were responding on social media, how they were responding to things. And I guess one of the first things that I tried to do was to take the focus off myself and try to put it on how other people were navigating it, trying to understand how they were doing, how my neighbors were doing. And that may sound like, oh, good for Joe. He's not thinking about himself. But it was really more, if I choose not to pay attention to what I'm going through, it'll be easier if I can focus on other people. And I don't know if you felt that way as a pastor. No? Oh, no, I think.
Yes, I did. I called everybody Saturday. I called everybody in the church. Some people I couldn't get a hold of because they had landlines. There was a large number of people that I sent a message to or I called and they didn't respond, which made me worried.
Yeah.
But I'm smiling because I now I understand some of the responses I got from you. But I say, "How you doing?" And like, I'm more concerned about you. Like, okay.
Yeah, which is true,
And that's okay.
Comparison is really an evil thing in many ways. It can be insidious,
Yes.
right? And that was a lot of what I was considering is Do I have it worse than anybody else? Really? But in this case, it was something that was helpful to me because, I could stop and go, hey, I've got hot water. Vanessa's work is allowing us to go in and work in those offices. So I have heat and I have electricity. Friends allowed us to hang out at their house and do laundry. It was uncomfortable. It was cold at night, but it helped me kind of ground myself to go, hey, we're doing okay. God's been
You
really
did better
good.
than me, it sounds like.
Oh, I don't know. But I was worried about you because you and I have been friends for a long time, and I'm thinking Brian's going crazy. This is driving him absolutely nuts.
So here's what it was. So for us, I Saturday morning I was like, okay, hun, Kathy, we need to figure this out right now. And I was a little worked up, and she was like, do 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 do, right? And I'm like, no, I think this is going to be a big deal, and maybe I shouldn't have reacted the way I did. But we sent either way. We figured out to send the boys over to their grandparents in Beaverton. They had power, they had water, they had a vacation there, right? Yep, they were fine.
Yeah.
We had a gas fireplace so we could keep the house warm. Kathy spent some time at her work. She was fine. Most of the time it was just me and Jesse, and so we had warmth. I could cook on the barbecue. So we were fine. And from my experience, I flip-flopped at times, even within the same day, from this is fine. I'm kind of on a vacation, because literally, and for like Jesse, who probably put it in the comments, it was a vacation because you can't work.
Yeah.
She couldn't work. All I could do is sit and relax. It's like being on a cruise, and I know how you feel about cruising, but you can't do anything.
Yeah.
Because we had no internet, we had no cell phone, really, we had nothing. I could just sit, and there were moments where I was like, this is fine. We have all of our needs met. We're okay. And then there'd be times where I would see someone like post that they got their power back, and this stab of envy would come up.
Yeah.
And I would get grumpy, and I would get angry, and I would get and it would flip flop. And one of the lessons for me was, it just was so clear how jealousy and envy really robs you of joy and peace, because you can't in those moments see the blessings.
Yeah. Yeah. I would agree. I would agree with that.
Because in those moments I could not. All I could see is they have it, I don't. I'm angry. That's it.
Yeah.
Then when I wasn't, I'd be like, hey, I have warmth, I have food, I have water, I have everything I need. I can just sit and relax. This is great.
He makes me lie down, right?
Makes me.
Yeah, that was a big. That was something that I considered a lot. Is Psalm 23? He makes me lie down. That we get so busy that it's like, oh, listen, I'm going to take this out of your hands. You can't do anything. Now, of course, I could. I figured out how I could. How I could work and that, and so I didn't lie down, and perhaps that makes me disobedient in that regard. But I completely relate to that vacillation between, we are strong, we're resilient, we got this, God, I know you're taking care of us. I feel blessed for so many things. And then, why is my neighbor over there have power literally across the street and I don't? And the thing is, I work with utilities. I know how this stuff works. When I saw there were only 6 people associated with my outage, I'm like, oh no, it's going to take a long time before we get back online, because it starts with the big and gets to the small, so in some ways, having an awareness that it was going to be longer for us was helpful, because there was not a sense of, it's not as much of a sense of, oh, okay, well, it's going to be any time. It was, oh, we got 500,000 people out of power, and there's only 6 people associated with mine. We are low priority. And so I understood that. For me, a lot of it was there were a lot of blessings that I became aware of.
Hmm.
In the world that we live in, here in the United States, obviously we're rich by worldly standards. I'm aware of that. There are plenty of people who don't have running water or electricity or or things that they can rely on in that regard.
Mhm.
Our culture is different. I recognize that I can't work without some of these things. So I give myself some grace in some of these things to go, yeah, I need to have these things for what I do. But there are things like walking into a room and flipping on the light switch and it coming on. And how
Right.
many times did you walk into a room and flip the light switch and
Lots.
go, oh man,
Lots.
yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes it made me laugh, and sometimes it made me feel bitter.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was just navigating a lot of different emotions. So, but like again, before we started, one of the things that jumped out at me that is the idea that I can have two seemingly opposing emotions or thoughts at the same time.
Mm.
And I could acknowledge that this is difficult to navigate. This is uncomfortable. I don't like this, and also acknowledge my blessings at the same time, and acknowledge that other people are also experiencing this. That
Yeah.
my experience may be my experience, but it's also not unique. There are other people who are navigating the same things, some with better circumstances, some with worse circumstances. Let's not dwell on, let's not let whatever suffering we think that we're experiencing identify us. Acknowledge it, process it, and then care about other people. That was something that was really important to my experience there.
Yeah.
And and like I said earlier, focusing on the needs of other people when I recognized that my base needs were met helped me navigate the time.
Good. Yeah. I think one of the other lessons that's similar, that's kind of the same thinking, is one of the things I think we struggle with um, in America, but also, and oh golly, I hate to go there, but there are certain experiences of certain people, groups of people in America
Mm-hmm.
that we as men, we as relatively affluent people, we do not get what they are going through.
Yeah.
And it was like flipped for a short time. It's like, oh, this is what it feels like to have somebody else celebrating that their life is great when my life is not.
Yeah.
Oh, this is what it is like. Why can't you be more concerned about my plight? Oh, and so now when it comes to now the power's back on and that life is kind of back to normal, it's like I think I learned to be a little bit more compassionate about the difficulties in other people's lives that I don't understand and I'm not experiencing.
Yeah. It's really that, that empathy is hard won. That your celebration is, salt in the wounds of somebody else.
Yeah,
And we are allowed to celebrate,
right.
but having that moment of consideration for how that might impact people. One of the things that drove Vanessa nuts was somebody posted on Facebook in our, the kind of community group here. Hey, anybody know any restaurants that are open? I'm so tired of cooking at home. And Vanessa's like, I would kill to cook at home.
Right.
I would, I'd love to be able to do that. She's like, read the room. Um, and, it was very frustrating. And I think there's an opportunity for us in our blessing to take pause and understand that while we are experiencing blessing, while things are going well for us, that's an opportunity for us to reach out to people who are not, people who are
Right.
grieving. I really related a lot of this, not my own experience, but just thinking about how people grieve that we have this amnesia, like, oh, somebody passed, that must be hard. We were around them for a couple of weeks, and then we get on with our lives, and we leave them alone.
But they don't get on with their lives.
But they don't get on with their lives. And I felt, again, I'm not trying to overplay my experience, but I felt that to a certain extent. My neighbors would walk by with their dogs, people I didn't know, but in the neighborhood, and they're like, "Oh man, that was hard, wasn't it? You know, how are you doing?" I'm like, "Well, I'm still waiting for my power." And they'd be like, "Oh, you don't have power yet." I'm like, "Nope." And I wanted them. I didn't want pity, but I just wanted to understand. Not everybody's there. In fact, even now as we're talking about this, I'm worried that there are people in our congregation who still don't have power, that are feeling forgotten. And that may not be true, but I know there are people.
Thinking.
Yeah. And I worry about that.
I don't think there is.
Yeah.
Not in our congregation, at least, but maybe someone who's listening. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've talked, I think, I think I've talked to all of them. So,
Yeah.
but yeah.
You know, another.
Yeah, it's just the whole weep with those who weep. It's rejoice with those who rejoice. And it's, on one hand, it's not right that I heard somebody else's rejoicing and I felt envy and bitter. That wasn't okay. On the other hand, me rejoicing to the point of not caring or being considerate of their weeping, that's not okay either.
Yeah.
So,
it's a big balancing act, I think. How do you? I don't think, it's not clear cut, and I guess that's the nature of life. It's not clear cut. Well, I guess if you don't mind, like one of the other things that I alluded to earlier, Vanessa shared with me is that, and it kind of relates to what we were just talking about, that as we're experiencing these things, it's important to not kind of take how you're feeling and that this is difficult and shove it in a box, but to go ahead and allow yourself to experience while it's happening, because it's really easy to forget how difficult it was when you're on the other side of it.
And the question I think people will have to that is, why? Why not just forget about it and move forward? Why do I have to process it?
Yeah.
Why do I feel my grief? Why can't I just, like, hey, yeah, that was difficult and terrible, but I'm through it. Move on.
To me, it's
Why not?
It's a unique and significant opportunity to connect with people. And I know, and so many other people who may be listening know that when you lose somebody significant in your life, the nature of that grief changes you, really, at a molecular level. And so when you engage with somebody else who is experiencing a similar grief, you are much better prepared to walk with them through that process.
Okay.
Now, losing your power for X number of days doesn't reach that level. However, if we process it and we remember what that feels like, then when somebody else is still there or whatever, you can go, man, that was hard for me. That's got to be hard for them. When you're able to connect with people, even in those smaller difficulties, that's an opportunity to connect with them spiritually in many ways. I still care about you. I mean, when power came on, I found out because a device in my house came online and my phone told me it was back online. I was, in downtown Portland working in an office, and I went, oh. Then I told Vanessa, and I was this close to crying because that feeling of holy cow, relief. And then I started texting my neighbors because none of them were in their houses. they'd all ditched, which is fine. I mean, because they could. And I'm like, Danielle, your power's back on. And Heidi, Brian, I think our power's, can you confirm it? Sean, who Sean, Sean, power's back on. And Sean, who we play games with on every other Friday.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
Sorry, I'm trying to remember some things out, some points that you've said. So
yeah. And it was wonderful to have that shared experience with them, that this small group of us were kind of walking through this, and then when it was over, to kind of go, we made it, and to be a person that was to say that was connecting to people who may or may not be Christ followers, to set an example of, well, even in my social media posts, I hope that came across my social media posts, that it was, we're doing okay. It's not easy, but we're doing okay. And I hope other people are okay. You know, my hope is that
it did.
Yeah, it came across the right way. So what were you thinking?
Well, there's two pieces to, so you're saying one of the reasons to process that is so that you can connect with that feeling better. And when you need to draw upon it, when somebody else is going through something, you can connect with them better. Mm-hmm. I feel like there's two other reasons too. One is, and then maybe not necessarily with power, but other issues, is it can create that bitterness, like I felt. That can create a cancer in your heart. Mm-hmm. And it can come out in ways that you don't have any idea why you're suddenly angry about something. Why are you irritable? Why are all of this stuff? And you have no idea why. Well, it's because it's unprocessed grief. It's unprocessed things that have made you mad. Yeah. And so that's a reason to do it. And then the other one is just growth, and we can talk about that. But the other one is, I think one of the things that it revealed for us as a society is our incredible entitlement mentality.
Oh, man.
We are entitled to power. We are entitled to having water. It's like, for most of the world, no, you're not.
Yeah. Yep.
And so they're looking at us going, you are incredibly spoiled. Yeah, we are.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And I definitely, that was part of where my mind was going. Like, hey, guess what? You don't have to hike down 3 miles to fill up the water and bring it back to the house.
And if you don't take the time to reflect on that, you won't be able to realize you're feeling entitled. You won't be able to grow as a person. Growth comes through pain. And so you need to process this stuff so you can grow as a person. So I think those are two other reasons that are good.
My dad used to say adversity builds moral fiber. And I considered that a lot. It's like, hey, this is difficult. And as a family, like, hey, I think we learned that this is something that we could deal with. Didn't like
James,
it.
Chapter 1. Your dad's practically quoting James chapter 1.
I'm sure he had no idea.
No, I'm sure he didn't. But, good, wise people like that, just they know truth when they have it. So.
I'm sure that came from my grandpa. That came from his dad. That came from somebody back in Ireland. And they probably read James. It may have been a couple hundred years before, but yeah.
Oh, I don't know. So, but either way, yes, I think those are some good reasons to process, which my last thought, and I'm trying to watch our time, is needing to take time to sit and process. I had the similar thought that I need more time to just stop. And, I was thinking about this just a couple of days ago afterwards. I used to, as a kid, spend like an hour just sitting outside watching the world. Mm-hmm. Just kind of processing what's going on in my life and thinking about it. And the older I've got, the less the harder it's gotten to do that. Less, but also harder it's gotten to do that. And I don't think that's a good thing. So,
to me, that's a part of self-care. That's why I run. I mean, I enjoy running kind of, but running there's times when I love running and there's times when I hate it. What it does for me, though, is it provides this space where there's not much else I can do but my legs moving, breathing, and thinking, processing what happened in the day. And I think it's really important. And I pray when I run too. Our prayer is a form of that, that processing, and, don't shortchange that. Don't, allow yourself to acknowledge that something was difficult and how you came through it, and and how that may benefit you later and benefit other people,
Mhm.
as well.
Yep.
But there's a lot of stuff we could talk about, but we are
Is
out of
there
time.
things that people wanted to ask after all of this? Was there anything in the chat? I cannot see it, so I have no idea.
I don't know, Jesse. Anything that's popped up from folks who are watching? I'm watching our little chat bot over here on the left-hand side to see if anything pops up.
So
She's not even typing. I'm going to guess that's
probably not that.
Probably not.
Probably not. I have no idea. Yeah, that's all right. We can answer those in the in the post.
Sure. Well, she's typing now, so let's see what she has to say.
Oh, okay. And the drum roll.
Nope. It says
Nope.
nope.
Okay.
Fair enough.
No sharing.
Well, here's what I want to say though. I can't wait to be back singing and playing my guitar on Sunday. It feels like it's been a lifetime, and
I'm longing for that.
Yeah, very, very much
longing
looking forward
to be together with you on the stage at church, seeing the people. Which makes me even long for even the pre-COVID days so much more, when the church was filled. I'm just really missing that. I'm missing normal. I'm missing seeing people. So
yeah. Well, I think we're on the downward. I
think we are.
Yeah, we got to the top. Well, God, your will.
God willing.
Yeah, your will be done, Lord. That with people getting vaccines, Vanessa's vaccinated. That we'll get vaccinated. We'll be back in that same room, and our voices will be loud, and we will hug on each other, and we will feel that connectedness again.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
looking forward to it.
Looking forward to it.
Any last words before we close, my friend?
I'm looking forward to seeing you guys on Sunday, and I can finally preach the sermon I prepared before this whole mess began about the parables. So
Coming soon.
It's going to be good. Huh?
Coming soon.
Coming soon to a church near you. So
all right, folks. We're glad you joined us on our first ever fully live podcast broadcast. And if this worked well from your perspective, if you enjoyed it, we'll keep trying to do it this way. We appreciate you being with us. Remember, office at opendoorcommunity.cc for if you want to get in contact with us. You can also just connect via Facebook. Let us know what's going on in your life and what you'd like to hear from us.
All right. Take care, everybody.
God
See you
bless.
Sunday.
Bye.